My name is Omar Bailey, and today I will be discussing power speech. More specifically, powerful speech versus powerless speech. It deals with the efficacy and credibility of statements. Think strong versus weak. Powerful speech is what you want to tell a person in a clear manner without any extra commentary. For powerless speech, it is the exact opposite. You are voicing your opinion and thoughts, but add in words that diminish the meaning of your statement. Powerful speech can be broken down into four primary components. The first component is hesitation forms. This is the lack of certainty or confidence. They can verbally be recognized when someone says, and, well, you know. The next component is hedges. These are phrases that reduce the definitiveness of a persuader's assertion. They can verbally be recognized with words such as sort of, kind of, or I guess. The third component is tag questions. A communicator will tag a declarative statement with a question. An example of this is, that shirt costs too much, don't it? Or, that shirt costs too much, don't you think? The final component are disclaimers. Disclaimers are introductory expressions that ask the listener to show understanding or make an allowance. The textbook opens with an example of a disclaimer. In the textbook, it uses a hypothetical student example that most of us are pretty familiar with. Essentially, a student raises his hand and says, I know this sounds stupid. Automatically, with that opening, the listeners are prepared to connect the following question with stupidity. This is not the goal of someone who wants to be well spoken. However, many of us find ourselves doing it at some point or another. An example of powerless speech is when I first started doing door-to-door sales. I wanted to be as courteous as possible when knocking on a stranger's door. So, I modified my greeting. I would add in, sorry to be a nuisance, or I don't mean to bother you. Some people would sympathetically listen to me, and others would slam the door in my face. When it would finally come down to the meat and potatoes of my sales pitch, I would ask a potential customer, is that okay? Or what do you think? Before I secured the sale. This would allow them an opportunity to come up with an excuse, killing any chance of the sale going through. Eventually, I learned from my mistakes and changed my sales pitch completely. My boss told me, people like to be told what to do. I stood by that saying. I became a sales shark. With the new approach, I found ways to make my sales pitch powerful. Rather than apologize for my presence, I would get in the mindset that my presence was a gift to whoever was fortunate enough to be graced with my presence. Jokingly, I was called the salesman Santa because I would gift savings to homeowners. With my mentality fine-tuned to be powerful, I just needed the words to match. So I eliminated all apologies in my speech and made sure all the questions were either leading or had strong reinforcing statements before the question. This ties into framing, which is another concept that will probably be discussed later in another presentation. So rather than asking a person, do you plan on replacing your windows? I would lead or frame, when are you replacing your windows? Or when do you plan on replacing your windows? Once I would get to the point of either making or breaking the deal, I would tell them when we would have our estimator around an appointment time. We would have an app to tell us our percentages of follow-up appointments. And with these simple changes to my sales pitch, my sales went up drastically. As a takeaway, you do not have to take your speech as extreme as my example. I suggest you primarily focus on reflecting on your own habits and recognizing whether or not you use any of these components of powerless speech. By minimizing weaker speech, you'll see major improvements and have a solid foundation to start adding on. Once mastered, you can use other techniques such as adjusting your language intensity or framing. That wraps up powerless versus powerful speech. I hope you all learned and enjoyed the video.